Travel at low cost with points and miles. Credit card rewards bring the smiles. Many adventures, tales to be told. Make and save money, the world will unfold. Fight the war on happiness, pick up the gold. Hurdy Gurdy Travel Podcast breaks the mold.
You're listening to the Hurdy Gurdy Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Vacula, here to help you travel the world at next to no cost with credit card points, miles, benefits, and rewards. Make money, save money, and take advantage of great deals. Thanks for joining me for today's episode with returning podcast guest, Michael Trager. We talk about the upcoming Zorkfest 2024 event, gambling, and miles and points. Before today's episode, some quick announcements. I'll be speaking at multiple events in 2024, including the September Chicago Seminars event at Hyatt Regency, the October Chicago Seminar event at Holiday Inn, Elk Grove Village, and the Miles, Points, and Gambling event, Zorkfest, November 2024 in Las Vegas. Visit meetup.com/Philly Miles and Points to RSVP for monthly Greater Philadelphia Travel Credit Miles and Points meetups I host in Willow Grove, Pennsylvania. The next meetups are September 15th and October 20th. The website udio.com created the new podcast intro music. For more content between podcast episodes, follow Hurdy Gurdy Travel Podcast on Facebook and X, formerly known as Twitter. Follow Justin Vacula on Instagram. On with today's episode. All right. Thank you for joining me, Michael Trager.
Hi. Thank you for having me on today.
Welcome back. We're here to record to talk about Zorkfest 2024. So can you give a quick pitch?
The main bullet points hit you right on the top of our website, which you can get to by www.zorkfest.com. Really easy there. What we're trying to do is we're talking more about learning about using points, how to redeem points for vacations and flights, and also integrating my real love, which is casino loyalty. And that's a good way to describe that is learn and understand more about casino comps. And this is on the weekend of November 1st to 3rd. And what we've done, which is really cool, is we've gotten together, we've created a conference which has a good number of social events, but is really, really streamlined. I almost call it like the TLDR version, like the too long didn't read kind of like we're basically going to give you sessions that are going to give you a really good basis for things that you should be concentrating on, things that are important to look at, but we're not going to keep you in conference rooms for the entire weekend. And you can actually come to this conference, still do a bunch of sessions, get a bunch of inspiration, go to a bunch of great social events, but pretty much so have your Friday and Sunday free if you wanted to. And that's always been a big deal for us, is to allow you to have like a really great weekend away and not just be stuck in a conference room.
Yes, I was a speaker at 2 previous Zorkfests, and I'm always happy to talk about the intersection of miles, points, and gambling, and that's what the event is really focused on here. So really good for people new, intermediate, advanced, anyone welcome to come, and you'll definitely learn something and have some fun too.
As much as being able to mingle with the speakers, and this event's a little larger than in prior years because it keeps getting more popular, but also the ability to mingle with people. That's a great thing, because that's where you can discuss the things that you're learning about or hearing about in these sessions. And we've done a really good job with that by making like our cocktail reception a little bit longer than usual on Friday night once again. So you have the choice to, have a quick drink, say hello, meet and greet, or you can stay there for a couple of hours. And we're introducing something which was sort of my brainstorm, which is called Craps and Blackjack Labs. And this is the first time we're ever really integrating a little bit more of the gambling side. We did that with Zorkfest in 2018, but what we're going to do, sort of running in parallel, is we're going to have a craps table and a blackjack table with some experts, and they will be there, and you can talk with them about the games, for beginners, because I get a lot of people who ask questions about craps, and then everyone's always curious about blackjack. So, strategies, advantage players, comps, and we're going to have that. And actually, Adam, travel fanboy or whatever he's calling himself today, will be sort of like the MC for some of that, just to make sure everyone, is aligned and getting something out of it. And that's going to be running sort of in parallel at the Friday cocktail reception. And then prior to when Zorkfest starts, because our sessions don't start until 9 a.m. on Saturday, we also have like a little breakfast reception. We're going to have more of that starting at 7 a.m. So Saturday's a very long day if you wanted it to be, but we did it that way on purpose. It's a little bit of an integration of a little bit of the gambling strategy. I mean, the things that people seem to be most interested in are craps, because they think the game looks interesting, blackjack because it's ubiquitous, everyone, casino, table games, blackjack, and then also video poker is another thing people ask about, but we're not really going very deep into video poker. But these are all good things, and that all integrates with casino loyalty, because we always get into this whole conversation about, if you're staying and you're playing, what should you play? How do you earn comps? How does this work? So it all sort of goes together.
Great. And Anthony Curtis is going to be the guest for the Blackjack Lab. Can you talk a little bit about him and that session?
Well, what's cool is he also is going to do a session at Zorkfest about the LVA way, which is Las Vegas Advisor. And if you think about it, I know, Justin, you do a lot of My Vegas stuff, which is like to me, that's like the new couponing way to do things. But LVA also has had a coupon book for years and has led people to how to save money in Las Vegas, on top of the fact that Anthony Curtis, who started Las Vegas Advisor, which is really a publishing company, Huntington Press, is one of the best blackjack players in the world. So it's sort of cool. He can talk to comps, he can talk to saving in Las Vegas, and he also can talk to being successful at playing blackjack. And once again, we've sort of done this where it's on the fringes. So if you weren't interested in being super exposed to any of that, that's fine. You could, the regular conference runs throughout the day from 9 o'clock to 7 o'clock at night. So that just gives you, it's sort of, I would say, like the craps lab and the blackjack lab is sort of like a bonus on top of it. It doesn't really take away from anything else. Like, it doesn't take away from any of the other sessions, but it gives you something in addition. And I think that's sort of cool. I mean, I think gambling, advantage play, or learning to gamble, like strategies there, a lot of those kind of strategies are parallel strategies to like strategies you might have with travel loyalty. I mean, it just makes me, when your brain thinks that way, like how to optimize, how to get the best deal, that kind of thing.
Right. It's using the programs to our advantage, understanding the rules, then how to implement good strategies to make and save money.
Also, I mean, this opens you up to understanding that things aren't necessarily black or white. And the good thing about, travel loyalty, casino loyalty, all of it is you can take it as far as you want to go. But you definitely should always be involved in it on some level. But it's not black and white. I know some people are anti-travel loyalty programs, and that's sort of ridiculous, because there are aspects of it that might be obsessive or it might take you a lot of time, but there are other aspects of it that don't take a lot of time and aren't a lot of trouble. I mean, I know we talk about people who are very critical of credit card programs and things like that. But, everything in life is about using tools properly, using credit cards properly. Nothing's wrong with the credit card. Credit cards don't make you go into debt, just like gambling doesn't make you go into debt. Nothing, as long as you have the ability to understand and have some level of personal responsibility. But I think that's the way everything in life is, that you need to have some kind of conservative level of, personal responsibility.
Right. And it's a question of, are you going to be worked by the system, or do you want the system to work for you? Where I hear some people say, oh, that sounds like too much effort, signing up for a card and moving my expenses over. when I see that as very easy. And I don't expect everyone to do every advanced play that I do. And certainly I'm not doing everything out there. But there are a lot of achievable, pretty easy things that I would think most people can do with just a level of responsibility and discipline.
Like everything in life, depending on how far you take it, is time consuming and difficult. Like playing golf well is time consuming and difficult, right? That doesn't make it smart or not smart or good or bad. And it doesn't mean learning about something, be it, travel loyalty or a sport or the arts or anything, or any skill, it doesn't make it, of course, everything takes some effort. There are very few things that take no effort in life. And honestly, with the beautiful thing about travel rewards, and this is one of my focuses, and when I think, just to give a little insight, we don't have the complete schedule done yet, but when Gary Leff speaks with Ben and he sort of interviews him, a lot of it is going to be like, what are the things you should be paying attention to for 2025? What should you be doing? And there are so many things in travel loyalty that don't take that much effort if you just did like these 5 different things, right? If you just understood what credit cards earned you more points, if you understood redeeming currencies, transfer currencies work and how to best redeem your points. I mean, if you just understand a couple of things are so important and can be very, very beneficial for you. And I know you do that, every day. You do that on a very high level, but you don't, but the thing that's beautiful about it is you don't have to do it on a high level, right? And to still get the benefit. And I think that's what's lost sometimes by for lack of a better, we got to say his name, Dave Ramsey's of this world. It's just lost by them. It's like, hey, we're not causing, I am so perplexed sometimes when people are so anti-credit card as a badge of honor, because it makes no sense to me. Because in theory, using a credit card doesn't cause you to have to take on more debt as long as you're disciplined in the way that you use a credit card. So it makes the whole argument makes no sense, because there were probably, and I can't think of them off my head, probably a dozen parallel things that if you didn't use it properly or do it properly would make no sense.
Yeah, alcohol, for instance, like, just because some people drink too much and some people get violent doesn't mean that no one should drink alcohol, because some people can handle it responsibly and they see the benefit of drinking responsibly. Or, look, some people speed and get in car accidents, so nobody should drive cars. It's just ridiculous.
Well, and also, people make personal choices, right? People make personal choices about what they want to spend money on. And there's so many, it's a very strange world. Like cars are like a great example, right? Like so many people like to have a nice car or into cars, and they're, financially responsible and everything. But fundamentally, you don't have to spend very much to have, what is a car supposed to do? Get you from point A to B. You don't have to spend very much on something that will get you from point A to V that you can keep for 10 years, right? I mean, but yet many people, spend a lot of money on cars, and that's funny. Like I would guess, like, I have no idea about this, but just as an example, Dave Ramsey, brags about how he hasn't used a credit card in 20 years, but he's probably driving around in a $100,000 Mercedes.
And he also brags about his office and his workplace being $1 million buildings or something like that. So
so it's like, what's your priority there, right? I mean, and you know what? This isn't actually being critical of him or critical of anyone. I totally.
Oh no, we could be critical of him. That's okay.
But I totally respect when people, make other choices. Well, you know what the problem, and this is similar. Similar to what we've talked about sometimes. The problem with what guys like Dave Ramsey do is they vilify things. It's all black and white. Like no credit cards, yes or no. No, it's just a complete no. It isn't use it responsible, use the right kind of credit card,
right.
Have a plan. It's just credit cards are bad. That's very similar honestly, in the casino world, and especially casino loyalty world, where people say like gambling is stupid. You shouldn't gamble. Like you never win. The house always, and they always say things
the
like
house always wins. Yeah.
The house. And then like the Dave Ramsey guys always go, the banks always win. That's why they have the credit card. You almost want it that way. Like you want to be the guy or gal or whatever, the person who takes advantage of things and letting somebody else pay for it. So if you get the Chase card with a great bonus and you use that Chase card and get lots of points per month and bonuses per month, and you transfer those ultimate reward points somewhere and use them, that's great. Yes, it's wonderful. The schmuck down the street subsidizing it with 29% interest because they're not being smart about it. But you know what? That's actually helpful to you because you're the one that's in the know. You're the one that knows that you don't carry a balance, that if you're going to play this game or do it, that carrying a balance it makes no sense at all because the interest rates are so high. So that's fine, but let someone else subsidize you, right?
Right. So why wouldn't you want to be the winner at the same time that the bank is winning? Can it be a beneficial relationship, a mutually beneficial relationship? Instead of just sitting on the sidelines, oh, banks are evil. You hear this from the far leftists too, and you hear it from some people on the right. Oh, the banks are evil. They're taking advantage of people, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, maybe there can be opportunities where you can beat the system in a way, whether it's miles and points, gambling, store loyalty programs, all kinds of deals that I'm on the lookout for. And we've found advantages in many of these programs where people just pass it by or poo-poo it. So why not take advantage, especially as people talk about inflation, the rising cost of living.
Absolutely. And certain programs are better than other programs. And there are times when you should use points, and there are times when you shouldn't use points. You need to look at all of those things, and things devalue, things are better, things are worse sometimes. It's all a little bit different. Like this is a little bit off, but I was looking at some flights from Boston to PBI, and Avios has really increased a lot of the domestic redemptions where they used to be like 8,000 points or 10,000 Avios and like $5 in taxes. A lot of them now are like 40,000. You do your comparison, like how many Avios does it take? Okay, well, that's going to take 40,000 Avios. And that seems like a lot for that domestic trip. What does American want? Oh, American still has that for 15,000 miles. Oh, okay, that could be good. Let me look what the revenue fare is. Oh shit, the revenue fare is $88. Okay, paying cash makes sense. Except for extreme exceptions, when I say extreme exceptions there are like a few outlier people who have millions and millions and millions of points, in which case they're so points rich that they should always be using their points because it just doesn't, like, they're never going to use them up. So they need to use them.
I have some cards that operate as purchase erasers. So even if I can pick a low cash fare, I can charge it to that card and then we'll just offset after the fact.
But remember, there's a value you're offsetting after the fact on, and you have to decide if that value is worth it for you. And sometimes you middle on that kind of thing. Like I like to get a value that's at least, 2 cents per point if I can. But that's I'm not obsessive about cents per point, like the 4 cents or 5 cents. And also you have to be completely honest with how you're valuing something, because I give an example a lot, of like airfare is a great example. Somebody will say, I redeemed, let's call it 100,000 points for business class on this route for Emirates, and it was a $15,000 ticket. It's like, first of all, it wasn't really, because you were looking at the straight one-way business class fare in comparison to the points you did. It's still a good redemption and everything that you did, but it's not $15,000. And by the way, if that airfare was booked as a round trip basis, that might have been a $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 round trip basis, which if you took just the one way is like $2,500. So you have to, that's one of my pet peeves in a miles and points world, is people exaggerating the value of something. And honestly, the reason that's funny about that is I don't think there's any reason to exaggerate it. I mean, that's still, if you can use your points, if you can use 80 or 100,000 points or 125,000 points for something that's $3,000, that's fine. You don't have to say it's $10,000. It's not, because it just sounds unrealistic, especially at least to me.
Yeah, so you'll want to try to calculate what your points are worth and not just willy-nilly use them for gift card redemptions or Amazon credits. You're going to look and see how you can use the points and get good value out of those, particularly applying it to things that you're already doing. As I've mentioned before in podcast episodes, I'd go to a lot of conferences and I'd have to pay full price for flights, pay full price for the hotels. So if I can use points and miles and benefits to offset the things I was already doing, then that's a really big win.
Yeah. And also, like, sometimes it's how you're approaching something. Like recently I was talking to someone about a scenario and they got a very good redemption at a Secrets, and which is an all-inclusive, and it was like 25, say it was like 25,000 Hyatt points or 24,000 or 21, whatever. Okay, so but the room rate was like, wasn't crazy. It was like 600 or 700 a night. So you could argue like, okay, you're not getting enough value for 25,000 points. I mean, I thought this was like on the cusp. I thought it was like, okay, it's not like the best redemption, it's not the worst redemption, but the mindset was different because they wanted to use points to redeem, because then they wanted to pay for like a better upgrade to a suite or something for a special occasion. So the fact that they had a zero cost basis and where you had a decent redemption to get the room for free, and then they were willing to pay X amount per day to get upgraded to the better master suite or something, that was showing them value, right? Because in budget, that suite would have been like 1,500 a night. So, and I'm making up this example, but if you use 25,000 points, and then and the hotel will let you upgrade to that suite for $250 a night, that turns out to be better, 25,000 points and $250, than spending $1,500 a night, which you wouldn't have had any way to spend. You couldn't have done that. It would be over budget. So I think you just have to be open-minded. You can't be Dave Ramsey. You cannot be, you can't think that every time you always have to use points. You need to look at what your objective is, and you shouldn't be critical of other people, like if they only use points to get 1 cent per point or 2 cents per point, because maybe there's another purpose to what they're doing. And also maybe their situation is, they don't have that much money. They had a lot of expenses, so they need to keep their vacation expenses down. So I think you need to be open-minded about those things, because there are so many angles here.
Yeah, and cruises have been an interesting intersection with miles points and gambling, as many casino programs have offered complimentary cruises, and we're earning statuses through miles and points plays and different offers. So originally I was thinking, cruises don't really seem interesting to me, but when I received some comp offers, or I only had to pay a slight amount of taxes and fees, I took a shot, went on board, and really liked it. So I have some cruises booked for next year, and I'm going to be happy to go to Scottish Isles or British Isles cruise and another Caribbean cruise, one with Princess and one with Virgin. And I'm also going to get another Royal Caribbean cruise or Celebrity through MGM Platinum status that I got using the MGM MasterCard and playing online blackjack.
Which is our great plug for Zorkfest, is this is a lot of stuff that you talk about. Interesting thing, especially about the stuff that you'll be talking about at Zorkfest, and a couple people will too. Dave Grossman does a lot too. How you leverage things that you can do which don't even require you to like gambling or want to gamble, and use it strictly for travel. So that's just amazing. And depending on how far you want to go with it. And cruises are definitely these status matches, and people able to match things and do cruise stuff is really pretty amazing. And actually, I love what you've managed to do with, quote, manufacturing your status with MGM awards. And that's, yes, it's a little gambling-ish, but it's not, it's something else somebody could do. But once again, you could take things as far as you want to take them. It's still great things to learn about.
Yeah, I've said that most people probably won't spend their way to platinum or find too much from the platinum status. But for me, since, as you said, this is a main thing I'm doing, I'm in casinos a lot, it makes sense for me to get the platinum status. Whereas many can comfortably sit at MGM Gold and still get a lot of benefits out of it, especially with the waived resort fees and matching to other programs. But the Platinum is like a cherry on top, where I'm getting a complimentary cruise, I'm getting a $600 flight rebate, getting an additional $200 in comps. And I stayed at Aria earlier this year, and they upgraded me to a Sky Suite, which was really fantastic. as they give a complimentary upgrade to a suite once per year with MGM.
Yeah, no, I mean it's great stuff. And a good thing to think about. This is one of those things where people are like, I don't have time to do credit cards and points. Well, actually, sometimes it just takes slightly modifying what you do with your life. Everything now, like my car insurance has no fee to pay with a credit card. My outrageous property insurance property insurance has no fee to pay with a credit card.
You recently moved to Florida, for listeners who might not
Right.
know.
So I have so many expenses that they are not charging anything. And actually, I mean, I know it's a little bit extreme sometimes, but a lot of companies like Progressive Insurance and Florida Insurance, whatever Florida Insurance we use, a lot of them aren't penalizing you to use a credit card. I mean, years ago, they didn't take credit cards, so they made you pay. Our internet provider, who is Hotwire, who provides fiber, they take a credit card. I mean, I could go through so many now that are charging no extra fee for a credit card. And that's something to always be looking at, because that's always changing. I know State Farm doesn't charge to use a credit card. It's absolutely amazing. And you can earn so many points. And there are also lots of outliers in other people's lives for things that they pay for. Like one outlier in my life is I help my dad and my stepmom. They've gotten much older and they have long-term care needs. And we have aides that we use through an agency. And that's another example. They don't charge a credit card fee. And we get reimbursed for all that stuff. And it makes my dad feel more comfortable for me to put everything on my credit card. And then he just sells me the money, gives me the money back, but he knows that the bills are always like absolutely taken care of. And then because the reimbursements sometimes lag and there's complications there. So there's lots of ways to, earn points, without even like truly having to go to any trouble to manufacture it. You just have to think about it, but sometimes when you just think about it, you're like, oh my God, there's like a lot of charges I could be putting on my credit card that I'm not putting on and earning points.
Yeah, the spending you're doing already. And for people who are newer, okay, well, that big auto insurance bill is coming up in a month. So maybe now's a great time to sign up for a new credit card, put the auto insurance on that, and then I'll get that big rebate of the welcome offer.
Yeah, well, that's another big point. That's the other great point. Yes, like every time, like we pay our house insurance once a year, that's a wonderful time. Like that can totally, like pretty much so close to knock out the spend on a new credit card. So that's another really good point. It's not only probably the best point. It's not only the points you're making, it's getting new credit cards, which you should have no problem getting as long as you follow a couple of strategic rules. And usually in order to get whatever bonus you get on the credit card, as but I'm just saying this more for people, out there, you need to do a certain amount of spend. And sometimes it's, $4,000 in 60 days or 90 days. So when you can plan getting a new credit card and paying, a quarterly bill or insurance bills, there's a lot you can do with this stuff.
Yeah, and with online gambling, I'm in a really interesting position here in the state of Pennsylvania, as I'm using credit to buy prepaid cards and gift cards and using the MGM MasterCard to gamble online with no cash advance. So with all this activity, I'm able to play blackjack, giving up about 0.5% house edge. But in return, I'm getting a lot of comps. I'm getting status.
You can't be. The house always wins. I'm sorry. Continue on with this because I love this topic. No.
Yeah, it's fun. So it's looking at, okay, well, normally you would be losing money playing, but here are some ways you can gain an advantage or a rebate in terms of doing this. That if I'm going to go to Staples, for instance, and use my Chase Ink Cash credit card, I'm buying fee-free Staples MasterCards 1 week a month. Usually they run the promo. So, okay, I'm earning the 5x Chase points, the ultimate rewards, and giving up that 0.5%. And even if I were to value those points at 1 cent per point, I'm still up 4.5%. I'm running the money through blackjack, withdrawing, and it's going right to my bank account. And then later I'll pay that credit card. So it's a fun thing. There are some ups and downs of it. And that's some objections that I sometimes hear from miles and points people that aren't themselves gamblers. Oh, well, what if you lose today? What if you're up? What if you're down a few hundred? What is that going to look like? Some people get scared of the ups and downs of it, but I think over the long run, you're going to hit expectation and it's going to be just fine.
Miles and points people are used to, if you do this, you get that. Like it's very defined, right? And that isn't the way casino loyalty is, and especially with the gambling. One of the things is that's one of the reasons why we've integrated some of the labs, because in order to do these things, you need to learn a little bit about like playing blackjack perfect strategy and what, how you should do that and what the house edge is. What I would say is people get nervous. I get this question all the time from people because there's such a misconception on like the house edge and variance. And yes, even if a game is a 0.5% game, there's still a certain level of variance. But the math always wins. It does always work out. The main key, and it's a hard one to explain to people, is that if your bet size is aligned with what your bankroll is, and you're playing into what we would consider close to the long term, you're going to be okay. The problem is when you're under bankrolled. So if you were playing, I don't know, I'm going to make this up, but I don't know if you're playing $1 a hand blackjack.
Oh, I'm usually playing 25 a hand or $25 units, but I recommend when people start, they just start with one hand at a time and $5 after they've practiced off table and they're extremely comfortable with the basic strategy. And even then, still using a strategy sheet or card next to them as they're playing online.
But they need to still have a bankroll.
Yeah. That
is relative. So if it's $5, if they're playing $5 a hand, their bankroll can't be $50. Right. Because that half a percent edge, anything can happen. I say this all the time again. Anything can happen in the short term, right? But if you come in with a bankroll of $1,000 or $2,000 on a $5 game, you're always going to be fine because that's just the way the math works. It's just the problem is you can't, I guess that's your risk of ruin. Like you're never going to bust out playing a $5 game with $1,000 bankroll, right? But you are going to bust out playing a $5 game with a $50 or $100 bankroll. So that's just something you need to understand. But remember, since the math is the math, and if you're playing basic strategy correctly and it's a fair game, it's going to work itself out. It's so hard to tell, like you said, it's hard to tell miles and points people. It's going to work out. If you come in with $1,000 and you are playing properly, $5 a hand, they're like, well, what if I lose the $1,000? I'm like, you're not going to lose $1,000 if you're playing proper basic strategy on $5 a hand. Now, if you start to push out some bets for $250, of course, of course you might. But I'm like, but that's what we're talking about. I go through this at because I love Baccarat. I go through this at Baccarat all the time. They're like, oh my God, it has a 1% house edge. I'm like, yeah, but you can't walk up to $100 table, $100 squeeze game with $300. Who cares that it has a 1% house edge? It's $100 a hand. Like basically you have to have bankroll. And I'm not going to actually even say what it should be aligned to, because some people say it's like this much times your bet or whatever. But you have to have a bankroll that is aligned with what your main betting unit is, because otherwise there's a chance that you're going to bust out. But that's sort of just an important concept. Hey, it's the same concept with slots too, right? Even if somebody says, oh, that slot machine is only a 10% house edge. Okay,
only 10%.
I know, which is horrible, but let's just go with it for a moment. If you go up to a slot machine that's basically, if you try to do $25 a spin, if you have $1,000 and you're going to do 88 cents a spin, or if you have $1,000 and you're going to do $100 a spin, chances are on $100 a spin, you're going to tap out. Maybe you get, and then here's the other thing, other misconception number one, other misconception that we run into all the time in gambling. Yes, sometimes somebody will put $300 into a $100 machine and spin for $100 and spin for $100 and hit a jackpot for $5,000. But that doesn't mean that the house edge has changed or anything. It means you got lucky. Right. That's also part of the way it's very, like, we've talked about roulette before, we've talked about other games, like you can win at lousy games. Of course you can. That's it. But when they talk about the house edge or a game, it's the long term. When they talk about video poker, that's a lousy pay table, that's 6-5 jacks or better. It's in the long term. It doesn't mean that you can't hit a royal flush and get lucky, like sit down and put $100 in and hit a royal flush on a horrible $6-5 jacks or better machine. But we're talking the long term. The only way you could look at odds and math is in the long term. But just because you get lucky and you win something doesn't mean that the math is wrong. It just means you got
Yeah,
lucky.
there's a lot of misinformation out there, and if you just YouTube any of these games, you'll see things like, "How long can you make your money last at roulette?" And like, okay, well, it's not up to you how long that money is going to last. If you're betting $100 a spin, and you only have that $1,000, yeah, you're very likely going to bust out. Now, yeah, you might walk away with a few thousand, but in the long run, that 5-6% house edge, or now the triple zero roulette, maybe 8 or 9% house edge, depending on what you're doing. Yeah, it's really going to eat you alive. So what I'm trying to promote here is playing with an advantage and only playing with an advantage. Or if you're going to play, maybe you're playing a low house edge game, maybe giving up maybe 1% or somewhere in that neighborhood. But if you're playing games with the 5 to 10% house edge, you're really going to get eaten alive. And to me, that doesn't seem to be a great, I hear some entertainment. I guess maybe, but you have to realize that you might be losing your ass coming out of that on the other end.
Yeah, and also there's a way to middle that kind of thing also. And you can play games that are entertaining, which still have a low or lower house edge.
Yeah.
I mean, and the other thing about that is, like with everything with gambling, you have to seize opportunities and know when to be done, and that's it. Hey, I applaud people that, they get lucky and they win and they walk away with that money. That's good. That's good discipline. It's a very, very good way to operate. But once again, that has nothing to do with the house edge. I was listening to a very, very popular slot channel person, and some of the things people say, like, yeah, Venetian seems to have like the best slot, like I do best at slots there, or lucky, people say things like that, and it's like, no, the numbers are the numbers. Like, there's like a report for like what the hold is on slots on the strip, and like in jurisdictions like Atlantic City tell you what they are by property and by denomination, and there's no big advantage. All these slot games have a big house edge. If you think that the difference between, and some have really high variance, and variance has a huge issue with this too. But if you think the difference between 8%, 10%, or 12% house edge, they're all like significant house edges that you can never overcome, that are going to cost you a lot of money, probably into the long term if you're playing them. I'm not judging if you should play them or not playing. I'm just saying it barely matters. Like if somebody said like the win was like an average 10% hold on slots, but Venetian was 9%. Ooh, playing Venetian. Come on, guys. I mean, like that's barely going to make a matter in a short term. And then you've got all this like variant stuff and how different games operate. And some games, things are so much more onto the bonus rounds and other kinds of things. It's and also like some games encourage you to pay a lot more per spin because you want to activate the best level of the bonuses and things like that. So, and then we get right back into that thing, like how much money you're going up with. I mean, most of the time people are under bankrolled. If they're playing $10 a spin at a slot machine, totally just taking a shot. Like you have no bullets, as many like to say. Like you have no chance of really lasting into the long term on that. So I mean, that's fine. I think I've come to the point where I don't mind what anybody does. I think people should do what they want to do. I mean, I'm all into, personal responsibility and stuff like that. I just think they should understand what they're doing. That's like, I'll play slots and I understand that I basically am dealing with this horrible house edge and I'm hoping that I get lucky. And that's it. And it's as simple as that. I'm not trying to predict what machine is going to pay me off or what property is going to be better. No, I just hope that random number generator treats me well.
Yeah, hopefully they can be honest about what they're doing. And if they're promoting the content online, they're also being honest about it with other people. But you get some really scammy people, or see like, oh, have a special guest appearance with Mr. Lucky here in Las Vegas, and I'll watch you play slots and guaranteed results. Like,
well, this is a
wild
pet peeve of mine with a lot of these things, is that they say, just because they say it's for entertainment purposes doesn't mean that everyone believes that. You could keep saying it's just for entertainment purposes, but nobody believes that. That's a tough thing, I mean, like legally they're saying what they need to say, but yeah, it's people just have to understand, understand what they're doing. And also understand when they get lucky at certain games, and that's just the way it is. But that bankroll thing is just so important, for any game, even a high house edge game. The amount that you play per spin or you bet per hand or whatever you do has to, if it's not related, if it's not related to the amount of money that you're playing with your bankroll, chances are the casino is going to beat you up really, really badly. And then it's like next customer.
Yeah.
And casinos love that.
Yeah, and with the variance of it, if people don't put in enough volume and they just quit while they're way down and they don't give themselves a chance to get back up, that can be very bad too.
And that's also another thing, like advanced topics like advantage play slots and things like that. If you're chasing some kind of bonus and the machine is in a state where it should pay off a certain bonus, you've got to keep playing it until it does. And that's required. So you need to understand, okay, first you have the factor that the machine is in a state that you want to be playing it, but then you have to understand, but what are my bankroll requirements until this might hit the bonus that it's going to hit or whatever. And it just all goes together.
Yeah, even in video poker with jacks or better, the royal flush comes up about once in 40,000 hands. So if you're not going to be able to play enough cycles to experience that royal and you just quit, then that really sucks. you have to be in it for the long run is what I say a lot, unless you're super recreational about it and you're only playing a little bit.
And that's okay too. I mean, but also when we get into the super recreational side, once again, we were saying where everyone doesn't have to go extremely granular with how they do their credit card spend or how they earn their points, on the recreational side too, focusing on just a couple of properties, focusing on your play, just on one or two programs can make a huge difference. Because I have, just like, there are some people who say, I don't want to go into the time. I don't care about credit cards. I don't care about bonuses for spend and all of that. I don't have time to think about it. And I hear the same thing with the casinos, but it's not that hard. If you don't gamble that much, concentrate in a program, choose like, okay, it's going to be Caesars for this reason, or it's going to be MGM rewards. And I go a couple times a year and I go to these different properties and just concentrate on those programs. Why do a percentage of your play in Caesars rewards and a percentage of your play in MGM if you don't have that much play that you do to begin with? It probably, I'm not saying it always doesn't make sense, but it probably doesn't make sense. So that's something else to think about. I always hear like people, oh, I want to pop from property to property and play. I'm like, why don't you just like hunker down and concentrate your gambling and do your gambling time in a concentrated time, and then also do your other fun time. Like, why can't you be more disciplined about your strategy on that? Like, why do you have to just like be willy-nilly, like that? But some people, they just don't want to do it. Like they just don't want to have any procedure in what they do. And maybe part of that is the way your mind works and my mind works. We're always thinking like, how can I optimize? Yep. You don't have to necessarily optimize, but there are so many small things that you can do. And we talk about so many of those at Zorkfest. There are so many small things you can do, which I would barely consider like truly optimizing. They're just an easy part to make out of your day. They can turn it into like a habit with the way you spend your money.
Yeah, and even the My Vegas games, I do the auto spinning in the morning, maybe about 5 minutes while I'm checking emails, doing other things, have the games going. And every time I go to Vegas, I'm getting about 75, 100 in free play. I'm getting all these dining credits, and it's really nice. So very low roller play. I think that's really doable for almost anyone there. And also stacking MGM comps. And interestingly enough, I also do secret shopping food reviews. And some of the places on that list that get reimbursed for writing the reviews are in Las Vegas. So there are multiple levels of stacking that can go on. So it's really fun going to Vegas and finding the low rates. I've been staying at Rio, Las Vegas, as I have a friend who's Hyatt Globalist who's granting me the guest of honor, so I don't have to pay the resort fees when I'm there. And the weekday rates are usually around 30 or 35. And I'm also getting free breakfast at Hash House A Go-Go. So lots of ways to save in Vegas, where some people, oh, Vegas is so expensive. But I wonder to myself, well, are you looking into the ways that you can save money and go for really cheap?
No, of course. And different programs, understanding when you redeem Hyatt points, even if you're not a globalist, if you're doing a redemption, you don't have a resort fee. And Hilton, you don't have a resort fee, I'm pretty sure, if you do redemptions. But with Bonvoy, you do have a resort fee all the time.
You got Bonvoy again.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But those are just things to know. And I think some of them, like the power, like Chase Ultimate Rewards are so amazing, and the Hyatt program is so amazing. But Hyatt still presents so many opportunities for people. Like there are so many like Hyatt places, even in like beach locations and things, where the redemptions are 8,000, 10,000, 15,000 a night. They're just like such good redemptions, and basically you can transfer. For those who don't know, a big part is points currency, and you can build up points in ultimate rewards or membership rewards and transfer them to programs. And it's just so darn powerful, and different things are for different people. Sometimes some of those Hyatt houses and Hyatt places are awesome for a family. A lot of the miles and points world gets too into like the bouginess, and I know I love the bouginess, like I love it, like it's of course, but there's so much practical stuff that you can use your points for, that it might not be very bougie, but it'll save you money. So it's rather brilliant.
Yeah, I'll have my Hyatt free night certificates to use at Waldorf Astoria in Las Vegas. My Vegas also gives 2 complimentary nights at various MGM properties, so really accessible to get to Vegas, usually low rates, whether cash or miles and points. So I'm hoping that many can join us in Zorkfest this year. And once again, if you could say the dates of Zorkfest, the location, and where they could find tickets.
Sure. Basically, you should probably come to the main website, which is zorkfest.com, and that has a link to buy the tickets. But the dates are November 1st through 3rd. But for all intents and purposes, the main conference is on November 2nd, which is Saturday. And we end the evening with a cool Podcasters After Dark, where we have some Vegas influencers and podcasters who do a little like show. We call it a show, and actually one of our sponsors, Herradura, is providing some cocktails. We have Herradura and Jack Daniel's sponsoring. So we've got a lot of other cool special stuff like gifts and prizes that we're doing. But but the things that your Zorkfest ticket include are the Friday night cocktail reception. And then on Saturday morning, we have a welcome coffee and light breakfast reception, the conference on Saturday. We also have a Saturday afternoon snack break and a Saturday evening Podcasters Influencers After Dark. Like I said, we have that whole dice and blackjack lab that's also running in parallel. There are no overlapping sessions. The main sessions everything's on Saturday, allowing you to enjoy your time in Vegas. A mix of great speakers, including Justin, Dave Grossman, Gary Leff, Anthony Curtis, Julia of GeoBreeze, Carissa Rawson, and Ben of Ben's Big Deal. So it's a great mix of people. And really, you could pretty much, so if you say, hey, I love the idea of going to Vegas and I want my Vegas weekend, you could totally have your Friday and Sunday free. But if you don't want to have your Friday and Sunday free and you want to do more, our cocktail reception runs for quite a while on Friday, so you could mingle for a couple of hours. We have a very optional dinner on Friday night, which is this very extreme, like Sinatra chairman of the board dinner. And we're also bringing in some people from Jack Daniel's to speak about Jack Daniel's and Sinatra. That's optional on Friday night. We also have some optional private gambling on Sunday, but you can just observe that kind of stuff. And we've added one new thing, and Justin's going to be a part of it, is we have a Secrets of the Elite additional backroom session, which is an additional charge on Sunday. So if you wanted a small group backroom Secrets of the Elite, all the stuff that nobody can really talk about in regular sessions, and an ability to break out into small groups, because that's going to be limited to under 60 people. And it also has a really nice Asian inspired lunch. We also have that on Sunday. So you could sort of fill your weekend up with miles and points by doing add-ons, or you could just have one really cool day on Saturday and then spend your Vegas weekend. And we have a room block also at Horseshoe, but there's no requirement. We do this on purpose. There's no requirement to stay at Horseshoe. Use your comps, use your FHR free nights, use your Rio. But if you want, we also have a room rate at Horseshoe. So that could be integrated. Like, say you had really good rates for Friday and Saturday, or you're using your, like Justin was talking about, his Waldorf free nights or something like that, but you needed an extra room for Sunday. Our room rate at Horseshoe on Sunday is actually $79. So I mean, that's yeah. So you could integrate that, and we did that. It's very unusual for conferences, people who know go to business conferences, but we never wanted to force people, because we thought it would be against our ethos to basically force people to stay at the conference hotel and pay, especially because some of the casino people have comp rooms. So like, I know a lot of people like, oh, I've got MGM comps. Well, Horseshoe is such a great location. It's right center strip. You could have rooms down the street at lower end properties like Harrah's comp, or maybe you have a comp across the street at Bellagio, so you could do whatever you want. So we've really tried to do that. So you have, maximum flexibility on.
Yeah. And for miles and points people, you can also transfer points from Wyndham over to Caesars and then use those to offset the costs. So many in the audience might have the Wyndham Business Earner credit card, and you're earning your 8x fuel, possibly floozing to the finish line when the fuel category is back up. But you can transfer a lot of your Wyndham points over to Caesars and stay there. Or it's a quick Uber from other destinations in Vegas.
Right. And even if, and remember, that gets you diamond status too.
Yep.
And our room block at Horseshoe, even if you use one night or whatever, as long as you have diamond status, you won't, because if you have the diamond status, you don't pay the resort fee, except when you book it online. When you book the room block online, it'll show the resort fee because it can't be linked with your Caesars. But as long as you show that you're Caesars diamond when you check in, you don't pay the resort fee. So that works out. That still works out well, because that's been a great benefit at Caesars. I know people, like we were saying at the beginning, just to close it, we were saying people get so critical sometimes, but there are pros and cons of all of these properties. And I will say this a million times, even the lower end properties in Vegas still have so many dining venues and so much, be it like Harrah's or Excalibur or Luxor. It's got so much more than your average Comfort Inn or Holiday Inn, so when people sometimes are super critical of those hotels, it's a little bit funny, because basically even the lower end hotels in Vegas have so many opportunities to dine and entertainment and bars and all of that kind of stuff. So it's, that's what makes Vegas great. Actually, you really have a lot of options and a lot of opportunity, even though we sometimes get a little jaded, or people say, hey, that isn't really luxury, but then a lot of people don't need luxury. They just want a decent place to stay.
All right. Very good. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you in a few months.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for future episodes. Visit hurdygurdytravel.com to contact me, find me on social media, read select episode transcripts, schedule a free consultation, and use referral links to support my efforts. Find this show on many podcast platforms and YouTube, where you can find bonus videos. Supporting me with monthly donations on Subscribestar will give you special perks, including a custom podcast episode, questions answered by upcoming guests, and monthly private one-on-one conversations, delving into more advanced topics I don't openly discuss at length in podcast episodes. Visit meetup.com/Philly miles and points to learn about monthly Greater Philadelphia travel, credit miles and points meetups I host in Willow Grove, Pennsylvania. I hope to see you in person at a future event. Find a link in the show notes. I'll be speaking at multiple events in 2024, including the September Chicago Seminars event at Hyatt Regency, the October Chicago Seminars event at the Holiday Inn in Elk Grove Village, and the Miles Points and Gambling event, Zorkfest, November 2024 in Las Vegas. For more content between podcast episodes, follow Hurdy Gurdy Travel Podcast on Facebook and X, formerly known as Twitter. Follow Justin Vacula on Instagram. Listen to my other podcast, the Stoic Solutions Podcast, found at stoicsolutionspodcast.com. My podcast guests and I offer practical wisdom for everyday life, inspired by the ancient tradition of Stoic philosophy from Greece and Rome. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.
Travel at low cost with the points and miles. Credit card rewards bring the smiles. Many adventures, tales to be told. Make and save money, the world will unfold. Fight the war on happiness, pick up the gold. Hurdy Gurdy Travel Podcast breaks the mold.